guys, a little bit of Christmas entertainment for you. Apologize for low quality audio, but perhaps next year I'll look at a USB soundboard and things of that nature. I want to talk about Stargate, SG-1, the series, and the very real likelihood that it's really a metaphor for what's actually happening right now. They say there's a whole lot of truth in the Stargate series. And what I find to be interesting about the time period behind the series itself, movie came out in 94. Remember actually seeing it in the movie theater with my mother and her friend at the time, who ironically I now believe to be someone that may have been actually channeling Archons that he in fact thought were Pleiadians or the Galactic Federation of Light. I'm going to be getting into stuff like this in my book. And even though I said I wasn't coming back to YouTube until my book is written, there are certain chapters in my life that are very difficult to write about. One of those chapters happens to be, by the way, the time period in which I think that my mother took me to meet the aliens in Canada, and the resentment and anger that I feel in my heart towards these actions, how irresponsible I believe these actions were, and the actual potential that maybe there was something that happened along the way to Canada with this very strange man in the passenger seat who had the voices in his head. Who had the voices in his head. It could be said that I was introduced to the Archons at a very young age. Again, very ironic that we all sat together in that theater in 1994 as we watched Stargate, the movie that kicked it all off. And I can't help but wonder if their own minds, if they questioned some of the Stargates and portals that they want to connect with and meet at that point, now that their New Age rapture of 1991 on the hill did not actually happen, or the ascension, or the enlightenment. And the consciousness of many of the people, by the way, on this planet are anything but that which you would see from a collective shift in consciousness. In fact, it's gone in the opposite direction. And I think that most of you understand. So what was the point of years and years of opening the portals and making contact with spirits that these lower level intelligent humans obviously were not discerning enough about when they were seeking to make contact? I want to believe. I want to believe. I want to be one of the 144,000. And so when I look at the archonic influence of the New Age movement, and then when I look at Stargate, SG-1, the series, and that has its own area of imagination and wonder. And so as I kind of primed you with a little bit of my personal life background, and as being an activist, and I'm against the New World Order, I see something non-human, as most of you know, behind the New World Order. And archonic is a Gnostic term that is not to discount understandings of demons or the jinn. In fact, I use many of these terms interchangeably because the way my mind works. Other human beings are opposed to using terms interchangeably. So you should know where that's, something where I differ from others. So if you study demonology, if you study the dark ETs, if you are a Muslim and you're concerned about the jinn and their influence, man, brother, sister, we are talking about the same thing. So don't get caught up on the terms. It's just because my own spiritual beliefs tend to come closer to that of a Gnostic, to the point where I think that I learned these things a very long time ago, and none of this is new to me, and I'm really in a state of remembering. And as I also look around where I am now on the planet and its connection to the Hopi, also known as the Anasazi, that have their own interest in gateways or doorways. And, I can mention Salida, which is hours from me as well, in this general part of Colorado, which is many miles from Denver, by the way, but more Four Corners, Southwest, that kind of a thing. I feel like I came back here to this part of Colorado for a reason, because of past soul experiences, or to be here at this moment for something grand, where I suspect something is going on below throughout much of the state of Colorado. In fact, throughout much of this continent of North America, there is something going on below our feet. And we look at Stargate, SG-1, the series, 1997, was it? 1998. Just a few years after that movie pilot. And so I believe that they are showing us, before a lot of this stuff came out on the internet about some of these rumors, what is actually taking place in a fictional setting. Of course, there were people like Philip Schneider, who allegedly worked at Dulce and other places. And if you also look at They Live, the movie with John Carpenter, there is like 1 minute where they go underground, Roddy Piper and the other guy, and you get you, the human elite, and everybody starts clapping. Well, they're underground, and there's like a teleport room that they witness a guy getting up like Star Trek and teleporting somewhere else. That was a Stargate. And if you look very carefully at in one of the scenes in one of the Stargate SG-1, one of the episodes, I can see 51 is in Area 51 behind those. And what comes to mind is super soldiers. It's widely believed that some of these soldiers that are involved in these programs going back and forth between the underground bases and the moon, and I've talked about this in a past episode, there may be some technology where they're going from here to there, and it's under our feet, and it's in certain places in this country, and that's basically the plot of Stargate. Now, they promote the shadow government in a positive way. Let's talk about propaganda. Let's talk about the propaganda of Stargate SG-1. And they're working allegedly with what we can call the reptilian race, mirroring the thoughts of David Icke, but they're called the Goa'uld. They're not called the reptilians or the snake. And I'm not saying that all snake deities are evil. In the Gnostic literature, the snake that brings the knowledge of good and evil is not inherently bad, but we also have to differentiate, as others have recommended for us to differentiate between these potential reptilian draconians and this actual serpent knowledge of good and evil, which can set us free. So we may not want to confuse draconian with this serpent of knowledge. We may want to actually separate the two. So we are looking at the Goa'uld as a potential metaphor for the Archons, the reptilians, and we can the Anunnaki, the Nephilim, the ones that those that came before us, the ancients believed were our gods. We can see other themes, the alien invasion coming from the Goa'uld in one of the episodes, and the shadow government being under attack, them coming after the shadow government, which is down below in the bunkers, as New York is under siege, as other major US cities are under siege, and the grid is down. The Goa'uld come a hunting for them. Now, when I talk about Archons, by the way, I am using a term that I gravitate to as a catch-all. When you deal with the head Archon, you're dealing with the demiurge, which is the equivalent of the Bible Satan or Shaitan. However, the difficulty in making that comparison is the God of the Quran and the God of the Old Testament and the God of the Torah. These are all counterfeit gods according to the Gnostic view. These are not the truth. This is actually the demiurge or the devil of this world or the God of this world, this fallen world in which our souls may have fallen into. Now, don't beat yourself up on that note if you are waking up to this reality, because we are here as fractals of this fractured soul, potentially connected in with the guardian of the earth deity archetype of goodness that casts down aspects of itself. And we remember as we come down and we see the Eye of Sauron in front of us and we see the deceptions where others do not, but we have a responsibility to help in the evolution of human consciousness through our words, through our information. So I'll tell you what, man, it's like we're living in that world, but yet we're not working on behalf of the shadow government, literally walking through portals with machine guns, with the star from MacGyver, a movie I was a fan of quite a bit as a kid. The original character was played by Kirk Russell, who's I think that I enjoy the ex MacGyver star even more than Kirk Russell with regards to playing one of the leader role of their little special top secret space black ops mission. A little bit of other things that we noticed there as well. We see the woman is a beautiful, very beautiful blonde haired, blue eyed chosen one whose history involves multiple kills of Iraqis in the Gulf War. So as pretty and sexually attractive as my biology may find her, she also plays that happy-go-lucky military industrial complex killing machine servant who happens to be a pretty chick during a day and age to where they're probably encouraging more women to join the military. It was the late 90s, the women's rights, you can come kill the brown people with the rest of the dudes, playing with the boys, playing with song from Top Gun. It's basically they're all one team. Yay, go USA, America. But it's all happy good, because you like the star from MacGyver, and they're trying to save the world. And so it does kind of lead the imagination on a propaganda level. The shadow government is real. There are underground bases and tunnels and perhaps teleporting technologies, but it's all good because we're in this fight with the reptilian race, which is actually the ghouls in the actual movie. Continuing on, they have an ex-ghoul who becomes a servant of the New World Order. And so, regardless of his name, like, oh, is it Tiak or I'm not sure, he's got this thing on his forehead. Almost reminds you of that emblem of the snake eating itself or the never-ending story, or a snake, or maybe the snake branding from the Conan movies, which was heavy in reptilian symbolism, very over. Even Arnold himself fighting the snake, very archetypal to the old Europe, something that I think lives in our subconscious, to the world of the dragons and fighting the serpents, and dragons that breathe fire and all types of shit. It's like, what the fuck, man? Where did this shit come from? Came from somewhere. It could also be said that we live in Mortor, or that it lies beneath our feet. Another reference to Lord of the Rings. So I see overlapping truths here. It's weaving in my mind as I think about all this pop culture with all this truth that has been embedded within it. From 1984 to They Live to Minority Report to Equilibrium to, even AI. Maybe we're the robots or androids trying to find our humanity in a clone body, or our souls, shall I say. Or our souls here, as I said, fractured, trying to raise our voltage, as Maurice Cotterell on Coast to Coast has so eloquently described in Google that, Solar Cycles, Maurice Cotterell, soul voltage. We're here to raise our soul voltage so we can evolve beyond the chains of this matrix and go back to where we truly belong in the heavens and connected with that great guardian creative life force, the guardian of the earth, and perhaps beyond. For our stay here in this earth is a temporary one. This is not the only world that there is. But there is purpose behind this illusion, and never forget that. And so, without getting into the specifics of Stargate SG-1, there's aspects of truth in there, and there are also things that again are promoting the shadow government and creating this whole fantasy story around it. And then, there's stories about Eisenhower meeting the ATs. And, here we have our own Laura Eisenhower, claims to have her own experiences, who really, there's things about her that I question big time. I'm open and thoughts that I'm not going to share in this podcast. But you definitely deal with some interesting characters. Hell, you're listening to one when you are dabbling in this particular arena of conversation with regards to all of this. So let me know your thoughts down below as I wrap this up on the ghoul in Stargate SG-1 being really a metaphor for the reptilians or the Archons, the bits of truth that may be in Stargate, that our own government may have some of this technology, maybe that perhaps why they're in the Middle East or Afghanistan or Iraq may be tied in with certain archaeological bits of information about our ancient past. A lot of the SG-1 themes there had to do with, even other alien groups coming to the mind of mankind to read mankind as they read that doctor scientist, one of the main characters in this SG-1 unit, the Babylonian fish that came out. He was grabbing it. He wanted to read his mind because he wanted to know what happened in Babylon. He kept saying, what happened in Babylon? What happened in Babylon? Now, you also see people that look like me, or the darker skinned Semitic, with roots to India and Arabic, or the old people, or the darker people, the brown people of the earth that seem to be transplanted around the world as well. They're not demonized as terrorists. There's no yada, yada, yada. None of that stuff's going on. But there are things in SG-1 and I'm bringing them all to my memory of what I've seen so far. I haven't seen it all, but just a few episodes from SG-1 that it's like right along the lines of the shit that we've already been talking about, including Goa'uld insemination or Archon insemination or demon seed through crossbreeding programs, to where the Goa'uld or the reptilians, potentially in the real world, or the Archons controlling them using reptilians and greys and other clones to literally get the biology that the queen would want, that would please the queen. And then of course we see the parallel in the imagery of the Matrix with Neo. Here, lift up your shirt. We've got to get that out of you. That same thing that looks like a little alien. Oh my god, the alien, the little thing coming out of the belly to boom and start. So the thing in the belly, the little ugly monster, um, the real alien using the human front. This is also a constant theme that we will see across the board within sci-fi as well. Continue to mention real quick a couple other major themes. The angry commander that says, screw you, this is the way that we're going to do it because I'm in charge. So even though he's constantly playing his part in maintaining the order on the earth and protecting the order of the earth from these aliens, again, Project Bluebeam, symbolism here as well, fake alien invasion, preparing us also, all this is there. But even though it's already going on, because in the end, it's like they even show you a little bit of truth. They're working with one of these reptilian characters or Goa'uld characters who's going on the SG-1 missions. And it's why they believe that they're already working with those groups, or that fallen groups that are masquerading as aliens that are stuck here on Earth are running the shadow government, that are in reality concerned about them losing their order. So they have their bunkers. And while we're taught to focus on World War III and economic collapse, they're acting like in some ways that they could be anticipating their ruler coming back and setting up their order for this literal etheric demigod to descend from the skies. Or they're worried about something happening from the skies, be it a deity returning or Inky and Enlil type of battle over the bloodlines, and or the sun returning, i.e. solar flare kill shots, disrupting circuitry, both known and unknown, causing unintended consequences, including the potential disruption of traffic back and forth, if in fact they have a teleport machine going from here to the moon, and a clone army on the moon, or in the moon, or other off-world bases. Talked about more in my video about Elon Musk and the moon, and watch that next if that's something that you want to hear me talk more about. Elon Musk, SpaceX. Yes, 2025, 2035. So you look at the stuff that's in the news and you look at what they prepared people for in a positive way, feel good way, with interesting plot lines like SG-1. And don't get me wrong, I enjoy it because I think that there's a lot of information that they're putting out there. And it makes me think more about, well, what is really going on south of me in Dulce, New Mexico? And why is it that I have these kinds of interests and this kind of imagination as it is? And I happen to be in a place now that I believe is an ancient place. And as I look at my return to Colorado and as I look at this place as sacred, I wonder, is there a Stargate below our feet? And as I looked at the town of Trinidad, if you look at my video overlooking Trinidad, watch that next as well. Am I in an ancient planet or on an ancient planet where ancient things have taken place right around you and right around me, and we don't even know because we may not even have been here then, or maybe we were in that fallen world and our memories have been wiped? And we find ourselves coming back to these places. We find ourselves being drawn to certain science fiction, and we find ourselves being drawn to certain books, and we find ourselves drawn to certain people on YouTube, and some of you are drawn to me because we're seeking to remember that which was taken from us. And it's all a very, very interesting story. So let me know your thoughts down below. And perhaps as I continue to watch this Stargate series, I got to get a ride back into town to get the other seasons that are on sale right now for a limited time. It's definitely nice to step away from the news, let the imagination from me. And oftentimes, as I've said many times, art imitates life and life imitates art.